Our stories sort of push the envelope about what could happen, not necessarily what is happening right now, but what could happen.
Challenges in working with ReGenesis is certainly trying to find the right balance between scientific fact and drama.
So, here's your field. Bolt of lightning hits it. The charge zaps a couple of bacterium. Their cell walls break down. DNA from one leaks out and slips into another. Instant evolution, anything can happen.
Every episode has completely different science stories to be told. So, you have a killer bacteria at one time that's completely fictional and a blend of two different ones. So how do you do that? You got to research it.
I love seeing scientists portrayed this way. So ReGenesis doesn't just show plausible science, it shows scientists as real people.
Hey, David, this is my son, Craig.
Oh, hey, how's it going? Look,
good.
You two will have time to visit later. Right now, your mom's got some PCRs to get running. This thing out west is getting out of control. We really need to get on it.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I've got to go back to work.
It's ReGenesis' time is now, that a show set in the world of science, an investigation about science, is very timely. I wanted to do a one-hour drama series, but I didn't want to do a series that was set in the world of medicine or law or cops. I felt the world had enough of those shows, and I was finding that I was getting really interested in the world of science myself. I'm not a scientific person, but I was finding that it was absolutely sort of at the top of my consciousness, whether it was genetically modified foods, whether it was the whole issues around stem cell research, whether it was issues around the environment. And so I thought maybe there actually might be a drama series set in the world of science, where scientists are in fact investigating what is going on in the world. And so it took a couple of years, about 3 years, to get the scripts and everything ready, and obviously to get all the money together to make the first season. And we started that about 4 years ago. So it was a very personal reason that I did this show.
I've always been interested in science. I think that's one of the things that drew me to the show, because I wasn't particularly looking to do a TV series at the time. In fact, I'd read a lot of TV series that really were one of the reasons why I was sort of loath about my industry. And then this show came along, and everything just clicked. It was the first science show that I had read or had read for that actually seemed to get it right, and it wasn't just sort of X-Files sort of crazy science fiction. It was actually grounded in fact. In fact, somebody once described it as being hard science fiction, which I thought was a really accurate way to describe it. Because it's definitely, the stories are definitely dealing with sort of the cutting edge of what's happening in genetic science and biotech, so that you can read a script and it will have the appearance of being a science fiction story, because none of this stuff is actually happening necessarily right now, but it's right on the horizon. So we could deal with these stories and have a lot of fun with them, and at the same time we could be backed up by by Al and what he would tell us is happening in some country somewhere, and what the leading edge science is actually going on and where it could go. So you had this great mix of sci-fi and just straight drama, which really appealed to me.
How much of the science is real? I would say there are elements of reality in every single story. If I were to tell you this story, hey, there was this person going into a hotel room in Hong Kong, and unbeknownst to him, he went into a hotel room and the next door neighbor was sick. And through some connection, some fortuitous greeting, this guy got sick. He hopped on an airplane, came to Canada, landed in Toronto, feeling a little ill. Someone looks after him, gets ill. All of a sudden, he goes to the hospital, a few more people get ill. The city gets shut down and no economic growth for 2 years. You'd laugh. Well, of course that happened in reality. So every time we try and look at a story and go, that couldn't happen, we think back to the SARS scenario, which was 4 million improbable events occurring at once, and it happened. And so we have to sort of, as a scientist, sort of look twice at whenever I say impossible, I now think twice. I think the other thing about the show is that because what the scientists say is real science jargon, we've said to ourselves that the public might switch off exactly when we're trying to explain what, for example, cyanobacteria does and how it releases minute amounts of hydrogen, and it's a very complex part of the science. So we've been able to marry computer-generated imaging so that when actually scientists are often talking about very complex matters, we can actually visualize what's going on. So that's, again, been a sort of a key part of the show from the beginning.
You'd think after like 5 years of creating CGI, I would know more about exactly what CGI is, but it's using the computer to create an unseen cellular or molecular world for the purposes of education, research, advertising. In our case, we're using it to explain scientific concepts for a TV audience. There's so many points or parts of the process where you want to make it more accurate, and it's too much. There's too many details to put in to make it super accurate. For example, at the microscopic level, color doesn't mean anything anymore. What does light mean? What does depth of field of a camera mean? So we do the best we can and then add a little bit of dramatic and artistic flair. But I think there's enough details packed in there that somebody who's watching it that has a background in bacteriology or virology would appreciate some of these little details that we've tried to preserve.
It was important to us from the beginning that this not just be a dramatic show, that it had an element of soft education, for want of a better word, that you actually could watch the show, hopefully be engaged, and then when you wanted to find out more, you could go onto the website. So again, we're not scientists, so we were lucky that we had the support of the Ontario Genomics Institute to be able then to write up the facts behind all of the various cases that we see in the show. So it's been a big part.
What OGI, or the Ontario Genomics Institute, does with ReGenesis is, we thought, what a great educational opportunity. Get people engaged in science and then educate them at the same time. But to do that, you've got to set the record straight. So what we do is we have online educational modules for every episode of ReGenesis called The Facts Behind the Fiction. And that outlines the science as it was presented in the show, and then what is actually out there in the literature, in the data. How likely is this, portrayal of science to actually happen? How likely is it to take place? How realistic? How plausible? And then we go through a series of questions. Could that happen? How likely is it? And then every episode or every fact sheet ends with a yes, maybe, probably not, and then some materials for further reading afterwards. And then we have a new series for season 3 called Science and Society. And this really speaks to not only the facts, the science fact, but also what are some of the other issues that affect the public? What are they interested in? What are some of the ethical issues or social issues? Nanotechnology, how does that, what are the risks in the environment in nanotech? What about microbial modification, genetic manipulation, these sorts of things? What kinds of issues? So this Science and Society series explores those issues, teases them out from each episode, and then explores those in much the same way. So you have this nice takeaway educational package with the facts and then some of the social impact issues for each episode.
This is a neat opportunity to get science, and not TV-sized science, but real science into the homes of Americans and Canadians. We, our children, everybody has a perception of a scientist that's the furthest thing from reality. And we don't wear lab coats. We don't, have pencil protectors. Oh, some do, just as some business people do, right? And scientists, for the most part, are moms and dads, and they go to work, and they just happen to do science when they go to work. And I think that's a neat lesson, and it's just such an exciting area to be in. So I hope that, in some way, ReGenesis accomplishes that goal.
What are you reading? Getting stronger. We got got it.
Just keep watching, and I hope you enjoy the show.